Welcome back. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. US President Donald Trump has now reached Davos. He's going to be speaking at the World Economic Forum in a very short while. This speech is much anticipated, not only because of his Greenland bid, but also because he would be appearing at the forum after 6 long years. He's set to deliver a keynote address in Davos at the World Economic Forum later today. Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta on the telecast with me. Ambassador Gauri Shankar, again, the big question, what is anticipated from US President Donald Trump and his visit to Davos? As I said, 6 long years since the last time he visited Davos. There is going to be Mark Rutte, who is going to be present, the Secretary General, who has invited him for dinner to speak to him, to strike a reconciliatory note on Greenland. Do you think there can be negotiations made and a solution be found within the span of the next 48 hours?
Good evening, Megha. You see, the President Trump is not the same president anymore as he was 6 years ago. Now he is left, right and center issuing threats to everyone. You have seen his threat to the French President Macron. He says, I will impose 200% duty on wines if he's using this kind of word. He has used this kind of threat against everyone now. The most, popular thing with him is to use Trump tariff tyranny, TTT. That has become his trademark now. Everybody knows that. So now let us see what happens on Greenland. My assessment is that he will not buckle down. He has made up his mind. He wants to become, a historical name in the US history who brought Greenland to US territory. That is one part. The second part is that he feels perhaps that in the coming years, perhaps Russia or China could have greater access to Greenland, which could be somewhat risky for the security of US and NATO allies as such. Thirdly, he feels that there are a lot of rare earth materials there and he would like to explore them. And the fourth reason is that with the climate change, a lot of ice is melting in Greenland. And maybe in the coming decades, maybe in 2 or 3 decades, the land will become fairly good for habitable regions. And therefore, you can even develop cities by that time. So these are the 3-4 reasons I feel that he has made up his mind and he's not going to change that irrespective of what happens during the Davos meetings. My assessment is that what can happen is that he can agree to a long-term lease, say 99-year lease to the territory, rather than acquiring it under sovereign basis.
Okay, all right.
So that kind of arrangement is
right,
possible.
Absolutely, yes. But again, contentions being raised as to the probability of the critical minerals, rare earth minerals being found in Greenland have been contested. And but let's also understand with regards to the tariffs that have been, the tariff war that has been waged by US President Donald Trump, and he's doing exactly that with European countries and their presidents who are resisting efforts by US President Donald Trump, whether it is with regards to his desired conquest of Greenland, or for that matter those who are resisting Donald Trump's creation of the Board of Peace. This is how alliances structure, with tariffs, threats and a very public show of power. US President Donald Trump is taking his pressure politics to Europe. From 1st of February, 10% tariffs are set to hit America's closest allies, including Denmark, United Kingdom, France and Germany. The warning is blunt: fall in line or pay more. By June, those tariffs could jump to 25%. The escalation does not stop here. US President Donald Trump has threatened 200% tariffs on French wine and penalties on countries doing business with Iran as well. Diplomacy has moved online and turned personal. Trump is posting controversial maps and leaking private chats. These shock waves were discussed this week at Davos, where world leaders warned that the global trade order could be faltering. Europe is calling this what it believes It is economic coercion, and Brussels is loading its biggest weapon, the EU trade bazooka. This anti-coercion instrument could slap retaliatory tariffs worth up to 93 billion euros and shut US companies out of European markets. The message from Europe is clear. Allies are not for sale, and pressure will not go unanswered. Let's open up this discussion, talk about the tariff imposition by US President Donald Trump and the retaliatory anti-coercion instrument, if imposed, if used by European Union, will it do any damage to America and its economic interests? Joyita also on the telecast with me. Joyita, how do you assess the situation? Do you think it's going to calm down in the coming days, and do you think there will be a resolution that could be found by the end of Davos, yes, tomorrow?
Resolution is totally unlikely, because you see, Mr. Trump has decided he is above international law. He has already mentioned that. He has already said that I do not follow international law. All I care about is what I think is right, and what he thinks is right is that, I mean, he has to annex Greenland. So, when if you are talking about in terms of any solution, in terms of his decision not to go after Greenland, only the US Congress can stop him. They have already passed the bill saying that he cannot take any further military action against Venezuela. So, they will have to again come together, and he has to be stopped at the level of the Congress. And if you are thinking in terms of resolution about, say, whatever his talk on tariff, it's again the Supreme Court of the US, SCOTUS as they call it. It is only the SCOTUS that can stop him, no one else. All right. And the thing is that he is already threatening and warning the Supreme Court in terms of saying that if you scrap my tariffs and saying they are unconstitutional, the US will be in major economic trouble. We have to pay back trillions and trillions of dollars. But the thing is that, so he is threatening the Supreme Court also in a manner, but we do not know whether the Supreme Court is going to be threatened, because whatever he is doing is patently illegal. And if you have listened to Mark Carney's speech, the Canadian Prime Minister's speech at Davos, which everybody is talking about, he was so brave and he came out, basically he kind of said more or less that what we are witnessing is that it's a rupture. It is not even a transition that is happening. We are witnessing a rupture in the rules based order, and how these countries, if you have to have, you need, I mean, it's not just food that is going to help, you need your defense. All right. So, it's amazing. I mean, it's absolutely amazing and astonishing that things have come to such a pass that countries, the NATO allies, the US neighbors, not the Latin American neighbors, I am talking about North American neighbor, which Canada is, they are feeling threatened. All right. I don't want to get into it whether they deserve it or not, but what it matters is that everybody is absolutely in a sense of tizzy. What we are witnessing is a total falling apart of the rules based order.
Okay. Particularly coming to you, when Trump undermines the United Nations, threatens NATO's integration, calls out NATO and says that NATO has been for long piggybacking on the United States of America, completely disregards its presence and its existence and identity. What are the positives do you think this could bring to the rest of the world and Global South particularly?
First and foremost, every US president has somewhat the other way disregarded multilateral institutions like United Nations. So United Nations Secretary General is probably one of the biggest mute spectator when certain things happen, because he is not allowed to speak against the Western powers. Secondly, I think what we look at what is happening right now is that the transatlantic alliance, which has been controlling the world from 1945 onwards, is somewhere getting ruptured. And we witnessed that European Union today is feeling the heat of the same pressures, same tactics that they collectively with the Americans used on others, especially developing countries, whether it's Libya, Iraq, or the whole of Latin and Central America. Now, what we witness are two things. Number one, it is impossible for the Europe to go and fight a kinetic war against the Americans, and neither the Americans will do that. They will try to hit each other financially. So the tariff threat that America uses, you are now increasingly seeing European Union using the same threat against the Americans. At the same time, Ursula von der Leyen talked about the mother of all deal that is going to come up, which is the deal between India and European Union, the free trade agreement. Secondly, today a lot of countries are taking note about the calibrated approach of government of India, and especially Prime Minister Modi, the way he maintained silence, the way he did not fall for the overtures of the Trump administration 2.0, and for everything that Trump was doing, neither India went ahead for the trade deal, nor India got carried away every time Trump said certain things. So India somewhere could see the trap. Now, third and a most important thing is that what next world order Mark Carney was talking about. He mentioned the word world order, changed world order, new world order. I think BRICS Summit 2026 is something where a lot of countries will have anticipation from BRICS. RBI has come out with a proposal of linking the digital currencies of BRICS nations. If we somewhere find that European Union is willing to consider or show more interest towards BRICS, that would be interesting, because that way European Union will look at as an opportunity to hit back at the Americans, because they presume that whatever BRICS does helps in de-dollarization. So in a way, I think the Global South today stands vindicated, especially the Global South movement started by Prime Minister Modi in the last few years, that countries need not be either pro or anti-West. It can be non-Western at the same time. Secondly, the Western-dominated, Western-determined, world order, or how the development model should be, that is actually getting crumbled down. And therefore, for everything that we take the reference point of the West, somewhere it has to stop, because we need to have today, I think today or yesterday, the responsibility index has been launched by India, which shows the countries which are the most responsible countries, and US doesn't stand among the top 30. I think somewhere we would start hitting back. Let me tell you one thing, last point. Whether it is Canada or the European Union, today they must introspect as to why the same pressures when America was putting on other countries, developing countries, they were hand in glove with them, went ahead and did whatever they could. So back to you.
All right. Ambassador Gupta, coming back to you and talking about the remarks that have been made by three important leaders at Davos in the last few hours. Talking about Emmanuel Macron, we talk about Mark Carney, and we talk about the EU president. Again, what is it that these leaders are hoping will happen? Are they really thinking that the American president is going to take a step back, pay heed to their logic, and decide after a meeting or a dinner, as has been suggested by Macron, for President Trump to be arriving at the end of the week to Paris and hold a meeting, have a discussion, have a dinner, and things are going to change for the better of the Greenlanders and Danish government and the rest of the European countries that are backing Greenland for its autonomy?
Megha, this is my intuition and my analysis after having lived in Europe for many years and also watching US and Canada. You see, ultimately the US is also inhabited mainly by the Europeans. They come from different parts of Europe and they live there. So I don't see of course, the Mark Carney mentioned about the rupture, but I do not see a rupture in the transatlantic alliance. They will make a lot of noises, they would protest, they will perhaps also impose some tariffs, counter tariffs, but ultimately they will reconcile. It may take maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year. The reconciliation will happen and they will all come back to the same logic, because they have been the ruler of the world in the last 200 years. They colonized the world and they did the slave trade. They all collaborated in that exercise, and I don't see that they will not collaborate in the future. They have a common interest to rule the world, and that common interest will prevail over their individual differences. So yes, at this moment it looks like a rupture. It looks like that the divergent views, and there may be a tariff war for a short while, but ultimately they will reconcile as they have done even in the recent, post World War II era. They all worked together in Iraq. I was that time in Bahrain, and they were all worked together in Libya and in Syria and in Afghanistan. So I don't see that rupture coming. And maybe even if you feel that the rupture will stay, it will only stay till the tenure of President Trump. Then things will again change. But I
Okay.
don't think it will stay even that long. And within a year, the reconciliation will happen, and they will come back to the same old transatlantic alliance
Also, because
dominated
does
by the
Europe
West
really
and
have a
desiring to
choice? Does
dominate the
Europe really
rest.
has a choice? Joyita, coming to you, does Europe really have a choice? Does it really have any say in the situation Greenland finds itself in?
Well, first of all, I mean, obviously, it looks a little dicey in terms of, whether it's primarily posturing, and possibly it is posturing, but the fact of the matter is that Europe has also realized that it has to, number one, increase its defense budget, that they cannot possibly rely on the US any longer. And the other thing that is happening, we are witnessing, say for example, this trade deal, FTA is it's almost, even if it doesn't happen, it's not signed on Tuesday, the building block, the first step will be taken towards signing of it. We are told 80% chance it will happen by Tuesday, or 20% maybe a few days later. So they are diversifying, they are finding newer markets. The Europe, let's put it this way, they have been so dependent on the US on everything. I think they are gradually coming out of that, some kind of dependence that they have, still have, and they are trying to find new markets, make defense contracts with other countries, increase their own defense budget. So I think it would be, I know it sounds weird for Europe to say something like this about Europe. This is perhaps part of the growing up process of Europe, and it has been a rude jolt that has come from Trump. Now, whether Trump's going away is going to sort this issue or not, we do not know, but there is a problem in the US also when it comes to Europe's, how it has been, say this primarily this NATO budget and all. It's not that it is not just Trump who is unhappy with it. There are other people also. There are other policymakers also who are not very happy about this.
Pathifrit, again, I do want to say, what are the positive takeaways from this chaotic situation that has been created when Trump decides to take over Greenland, particularly with regards to, again, disintegration of NATO, with regards to European countries now wanting to have trade deals? I understand that it is, there is going to be a gestation period while the European countries, and not just Europe, the rest of the world, in Asia as well, in India as well, we are weaning, even if we want to wean away from our dependence on America, it is a period, it is a time period that will take for these supply chains to become more resilient, and we are in all likelihood going to see the markets crash in the coming next months.
Nobody wants Europe or US to be completely, bypassed. The issue is that their interventionist approach must stop. So I think, supply chains may have a little bit of recalibration. The positive thing is this, two things. Number one, last week or couple of maybe 2 weeks back, Macron was tweeting how happy he is that Maduro, Venezuela has been, freed of Maduro by Trump. He was congratulating Trump, and then again few days back he was again tweeting that if Trump does the same thing in Greenland, it is so very bad. So that shows a double standard of the Europeans, number one. Secondly, last week they had a meeting giving security guarantee to Ukraine against Russia, in which the Americans were also present, and then the Europeans together had a meeting that what will we do if the Americans attack us. So that shows the hypocrisy, the fallacy of the European concept of what the world is. And that is what Jaishankarji had mentioned many times, that Europe must grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. So they have to come out of that. That is a positive thing. Number three, look, I agree with Joyita ji that if you look at it, if Trump in the next 2 months takes over Greenland, logistically it's a nightmare for European NATO members to go and fight for Greenland. Now, if Trump takes over and if there is a president next time who is from the Democratic Party, will he really give over Greenland back to Europe? I doubt. That is not going to happen. That's now not how America operates. And also, please understand, yes, it is true, most of the Americans are of European origin, but every 80 years, 40, 50 years, the Europeans have fought against each other. The two world wars we talk about happened among these so-called brothers in Europe who don't see eye to eye with each other. It's only in the last 80 years that the European Union kind of a concept came in. Otherwise, they racially hate each other. So there is no love lost so far as the Europeans are concerned for each other. The positive thing is this, that it is time for other countries to realize, stop depending on the West, be self-sufficient, arm yourself, or else tomorrow you will be of Greenland or Venezuela. And I must thank those who decided that India must have nuclear weapon. That's the reason we are safe from another Trump adventure. Back to you.
Ambassador Gupta, again, I do want to focus on Trump's statement on how he categorizes United Nations as inutile. Goes on to say that it does not have the power to end wars. This is what Trump has been doing in the last 8 wars that he has intervened in, as he continues to portray himself as the world's peacemaker. And he goes on to say that United Nations is going to be replaced by his Board of Peace, which is the lesser of the evils that India can rely on. We continue to say that United Nations has lost its relevance. It continues to project itself as an entity, as a body that caters to the Europeans and the Americans. But if United Nations gets replaced by the Board of Peace that is heralded by America, led by Donald Trump, does India have a choice?
Megha, you see the entire multilateral system, not only the United Nations, but also WTO, also the World Health Organization, UNESCO, and the entire multilateral system has been considerably weakened by the US and particularly by President Trump. He has already decided to withdraw from many UN bodies because he thinks that he is the dictator of the world and he can dictate terms, and he using tariff as a instrument of war. He is also threatening the technological denial, is threatening what we call the information warfare. So he will continue to use all these instruments to threaten other countries. So the best thing which can come out of this thing is that the other countries will get together and they will realize this threat and they will find a way to actually either to manage or to counter this threat. And that will give strength to countries like India, China, Russia, and to some extent those European countries who will get completely fed up and would like to divorce from US. I think those countries can come together and form their own alliance in one way or the other. You mentioned about the BRICS. I think the BRICS will become more important in the coming years. The dollar de-dollarization has already begun and it will continue. And I have a feeling that now Russia is also enjoying the fight because they know this will ultimately go in their interest and they will be able to have a good position in Europe after this rupture. So as a whole, the world order will continue to change and it will change against the United States, at least in the near future. And whether Trump survives or doesn't survive, even after 3 years of his tenure, the order once will be set in place will continue, and therefore these supply chains will change to some extent. The dependencies on the exports to US will change. The innovative power of other countries will increase. The arms production by other countries will also increase. India is already concentrating on all these issues. We are concentrating on Atmanirbhar Bharat. We have also invested a lot on innovation and we are manufacturing a lot of weapons in our own country to become some sort of independent in critical sectors so that we don't have to
Okay.
depend on US and the West for all this.
Okay.
So I
All
think
right.
this
All
is
right.
a
Fair
time
enough. But
when
then,
all these
okay. Jyota, coming back to you, when talking about, there's been a slight shift in stance when it comes to Russia, looking at this latest move by the US president to take over Greenland, because the primary reason US president has justified in wanting to annex Greenland is for national security, to fight the threat of China and Russia in the Arctic. To which Russia just a few days ago was saying that Greenland or countries that are around Greenland, which includes United States of America, North America, are in no way posed with threat from Russia. And only yesterday, the foreign minister of Russia, Lavrov, has gone on and said that Greenland is not a natural part, a natural territory of Denmark. So, hinting, virtually saying that Greenland should just be handed over to America. So, why do you think there has been a shift to stance?
Well, first of all, you see, when you are looking at Russia, I mean, there is no way that Russia is a threat to that part of the world, and especially it sounds absolutely ludicrous given that America and Russia are just neighbors across the Bering Strait. Kamchatka Peninsula, and there is the Alaska over there. So, it does not make sense that the US does not want Russia as neighbor. And number two, if you are looking at it, okay, it may sound a little cynical, but the fact of the matter is that who will this help? If Donald Trump decides to annex Greenland, and obviously no country will be able to withstand that American full force of American military power. If he decides to annex Greenland, who does it help? Russia, who else? Because that is going to be the end of NATO. NATO is just going to fall apart if the one of the main members of NATO does something, takes over territory.
Is it really going to fall apart? Keeping in mind, why is it that the UK Prime Minister continues to resist from making a statement against US President Donald Trump over Greenland? Why is it that Olaf Scholz has still not made any statement that could that supports the sovereignty of the state of Greenland? So while there are certain actors, for example, France, for example, European Union President, who have made these strong statements, there are certain other actors, important countries within the European Union, within NATO, who are keeping quiet, who at this point of time are hoping that there is going to be reconciliation, resolution. They know that rubbing Trump the wrong way is not going to work in their favor. Or see the state of affairs that France and Emmanuel Macron find themselves in, 200% tariffs. Europe does not want that, UK does not want that, Germany does not want that. So, they are wanting to strike a reconciliatory note with Donald Trump. How far are they going to be successful in being able to reason with Donald Trump is anybody's guess. I will take a short break. Thanks for watching NewsX.